Okay, hi brothers and sisters. We're back for our study in Wisdom, chapter 3 and 4. And it'll be as much a surprise to me what I say as it's going to be for you, because it's been about a week since I've been in it, and I'll be darned if I can remember half of what I thought and knew at that time, because there's been so many more studies going on in my life that, you know, a lot of times you can't share them all, and don't you wish you could though. So let's begin in chapter 3 of Wisdom, and we'll pull up the verses as we need to, because I've got nothing pulled up at this point. I've got a few written down. I actually did take the time to take a few more notes than what I usually do. So as long as we've got some tabs pulled up here. Okay, so let's begin our read here. Do I need my magnifying glass? We'll put it at ready. Okay, so chapter 3 of Wisdom. This is wisdom that's in the Apocrypha. So if you happen to have a copy of the Apocrypha kicking around, and I'm sure you know whether you do or don't, then turn to the book of Wisdom, and we'll begin reading at chapter 3. Okay, but the sounds of the righteous are in the hand of God, and there shall no torment touch them. In the sight, excuse me, I got a little bit of gas tonight. In the sight of the unwise, they seem to die, and their departure is taken for misery. You know what I got out of that? I got that we can't know. You know, we can point at somebody. Sorry for the light here reflecting on me. You can't know the condition of somebody. And if you'd have asked me 10 years ago, we're not supposed to judge anybody. But it says in the New Testament, by their fruit you shall know them. That's right, but it doesn't mean bowing at the feet of an idol. And yes, that is part of by their fruit you shall know them. But if you'd have asked me 10 years ago, my answer would have been far different than the answer that I would give today in what I've come to understand. I'd have said, oh, well, you know, that one for sure, because that one don't believe this. And we all tend to have that way about us, that there ain't much that, you know, when we're a saint that we don't know. There's one thing that they teach us, and it's bow to Jesus, because without Jesus you can't do nothing right. And my answer today is very different. But, you know, I keep going back to this because I truly believe that this is what Uriel the angel, archangel, was saying to Ezra, also in the book of Apocrypha, one of the books of the Apocrypha here, and that was 2nd Ezra. And Uriel the archangel, who was one of the presence of God, represented God on earth, and we've identified all of that. You know, Uriel said, if you can't understand your condition in this earth and what's going on in your earth, how can I possibly tell you of heavenly things and have you understand them? And so, you know, when I look back 10 years ago, I realized I really didn't believe there was a heavenly mother. And yet God says, open your eyes, listen with your ears, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Don't get caught up in bowing to an idol and being stagnant. That's how I look at it today. So I don't think we have a right, God is saying in this verse, and in another 10 years, if I'm still here, who knows what my answer might be, you know? We just really don't have a right to say anything. And again, it goes back to the heart. What do you truly, truly desire in your heart, or believe in your heart? Do you want to do the right things? You know, regardless, do you want to follow the commandments of God and follow what's right? Regardless of whether we're going to argue over gender or whatever, or an idol, or whether it's not an idol, do you want to follow the way of God? Do you want to do what's right? And so in the sight of the unwise, and Wisdom says, when I called, you couldn't be bothered to respond to me, you know. And again, we've discussed that many, many times. So in the sight of the unwise, they seem to die, and their departure is taken for misery. You know, that's how we would comprehend it, or certainly how I would have comprehended it 10 years ago. But you don't have a right, because you don't know. That's what it's saying, I believe. And I don't care if they give you a free pass. By their fruits you shall know them. You better know what it means by their fruits. Number one, I think, is what it's saying. So, okay, we go to verse 3. And they're going from us to be utter destruction, but they really are in peace. For though they be punished in the sight of men, yet in their hope full of immortality. So yet is their hope full of immortality. You know who I think is punished in the sight of men? Women. And I had this one, often stated, well, women travail in childbirth, and that was punishment for her sin. So I kind of get a feel that that's what that's referencing there. For though they be punished in the sight of men, yet is their hope full of immortality. Okay, so verse 5. And having been a little chastised. Oh boy, I could tell you how I feel some days. You just look at the Lord and you go, what did I do to deserve this? And in the back of your mind you're going, oh, I know I deserve it, Despite all the good things that God has provided us with, we'll still, think that way at times. And that's, I don't know a person, well, some people will lie that they don't think that way, I think. When really they do have these feelings, I don't think we can help not having those feelings from time to time. I think those in third world nations have more of a right to those feelings, certainly, than we do. But, we think we're really heavily chastised. But really, in the weighing up of things, we really haven't been that heavily chastised, especially when you think of all the things that God could probably do to you that we don't even know about. So, and having been a little chastised, they shall be greatly rewarded. For God proved them and found them worthy. Now, I'm not even following my notes here right now. But where do we get that verse in our Bible? Okay, let me see here if I've got anything for this verse. Okay, so we are currently on, okay, verse 5. So I do not see anything here written down for verse 5. Okay, so the first thing I have written down is for verse 7. But in verse 5, and having been a little chastised, they shall be greatly rewarded. For God proved them and found them worthy for it. Now they've got himself. I'm sorry if I'm out of frame here. I don't think it's himself. I think it's herself. The God you don't know. It says God hid God's self from us. And all we hear is Father and Son. Is that hiding from us? I don't think it is. I think it has a much deeper context than anybody has bothered to really try to understand in the Old Testament, barring a few amongst us that have went in deep search. And according to the Bible, there is a few of us. There's not a lot of us that actually do this. The rest are caught up in idol worship. They won't open. To be transformed is to renew your mind, the way that you look at things. A lot of people won't watch different people's videos who have took a different path, such as myself. Because, you know what? You can't undo a lifetime of programming in 2 minutes. The first step that you have to take is that you have to want to understand that truth and be willing to hear and listen, and either to receive what they're saying or to disregard it, but to weigh it up. To listen with your ears, to look around you with your eyes, to weigh that up for yourself. But if you're down at the feet of an idol going, oh, I know I got it, I ain't listening to this foolishness, well, guess what? You're never going to be transformed. Never. You're going to be a Philistine until the day they plant you in the ground. And that is the idea of a Philistine, somebody who rejects moving forward with their thinking. And having been a little chastised, they shall be greatly rewarded, for God proved them and found them worthy for herself. Now we find that, I believe, in Isaiah 28. So let's see. Alright. So my camera is still on here. Don't see my light going out. It is Isaiah 20, I believe it's 28. Did I get it? No, I got 41. Okay, how did I do that? Okay, let's go back here, because I can't see my... You want it what? 28. 20... No, I'm doing it wrong. Sorry. Where's my keyboard? Numbers. 20. Okay, there we go. Now I found them. 8. Sorry about that. I could be here all night. At this rate. So, Isaiah 28, we get the testing. And what is being tested there is a stone. Right? And that takes us to the understanding of the foundation stone. The original foundation stone got cast out for a false foundation. Alright? But we just want to read the verse because we've discussed all of this in prior videos. We've also understood, right there, cornerstone in Zion, that, now I forgot my thought there, that the stone that smashes the toes on the idol of a man is your Lord and God, and there's no denying that that's the image that you see in Daniel 2. That each male-ruled kingdom, successive kingdom, whatever you want to call it, built upon this notion that man was your God. And we've understood how they did that over time. So what does it say here? Verse 16 of Isaiah 28, Therefore thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I lay in Zion for a foundation stone, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, a sure foundation, and the one that believeth shall not make haste. Alright? So this is why we get in verse 5, And having been a little chastised, they shall be greatly rewarded, for God proved them and found them worthy. Verse 6, As gold. This one I found fascinating. And of course I didn't write it down. As I wrote it in another book. I might have wrote it off here to the side. As gold in the furnace has she tried them and received them as burnt offerings. Oh my gosh! Where is all of my information on that? Oh, I had that pulled up in a study. Sorry here. I rewrote some notes out on the following pages. Okay, so let's do this by memory then. Because we identified the heifer burnt to ashes. So we have the burnt offering there as feminine, right? I may have it wrote down for other verses as well, so I better jump ahead here and just see to make sure I ain't. Okay, so it does so take us to the Shulimite. I don't know if I got that. Okay, let me just make sure I don't. There it is. I believe it's right here. Alright, okay. So I did have, I did remember. Oh wow, ain't I proud of myself. Okay, Wisdom chapter 3, and I just read verse 5, and we moved on to 6. So, so verses 5 and 6. Let's reread them right quick. And having been a little chastised, they shall be greatly rewarded, for God proved them and found them worthy for herself. As gold in the furnace has she tried them and received them as a burnt offering. Now, verses 5 and 6 crosses actually with Song of Songs 3:6. Why? Because it says, Who is this coming up from the wilderness like a column of smoke, perfumed with myrrh and frankincense? And here we get the gold. Isn't that interesting? As gold. It doesn't say as silver. It says as gold. These are your first fruits. They've always had the truth in them. So as gold in the furnace has she tried them and received them as a burnt offering. So you get the smell. She's smelling the aroma of myrrh and frankincense. As well, in Song of Songs, who is this coming up from the wilderness like a column of smoke perfumed with myrrh and frankincense? It's she. From all the spices of the merchants. The gold is in Wisdom 3:6, which we just read it. I found that absolutely fascinating. And then, of course, you get the heifer, burned to ashes, a burnt offering. And we know from Hebrews, I believe it's chapter 9, that you get your understanding that the heifer represented the Holy Spirit, or the holy ones in the land. And that was your daughters. That's why you get a feminine there represented as your spirit in the land. That was rejected as a foundation stone. They laid in a harlot spirit that would bow to man as Lord and God. Now, we've gotten that. That's just thrown in there every time for somebody new who might actually watch 2 minutes. So, verse 7. And in the time of their visitation, they shall shine and run to and fro like sparks amongst the stubble. So, sparks. Now, we learned that spark was another word for your posterity, all right? It's figurative of hope in posterity. Now, posterity is your future generations. So I'm going to go back here, make sure we're not leaving anything behind here. So I got verse 9 here. Okay, so back ahead, because I rewrote my notes over. I don't know about me. So posterity, we understood it as Strong's Hebrew 1513. Sparks is 3590. Posterity, Strong's Hebrew 1513. Figurative of hope and posterity. We found that in Ezekiel 10. Let me see. We'll pull this here. No, we will not. Let's do it here. Okay, so Ezekiel 10. I did a study on this. I believe it's posted to 8th Day Dawning, which I haven't got to making any videos for lately. I might possibly, if I could just get the time. It's so difficult to get the time. So in Ezekiel 10, we found this. All right, we found this image. Okay, so I'm going to get chapter 10. All right. Parallel chapters, so we can get maybe some different readings. Now, right here. So verse 2, well, let's read 1 and 2, because that's where we want to be. Ezekiel 10. Then I looked, and behold, in the firmament that was above the head of the cherubims, there appeared over them, as it were, a sapphire stone, as the appearance of the likeness of a throne. Verse 2. And she spake, that's right, this is the glory speaking. It's feminine. It's not no man. They can shove the he pronoun all they want. The only reason why the he pronoun is in there, I promise you this, is because the pen was held in a man's hand who didn't want to listen to the truth. And she spake unto the man clothed with linen, and said, Go in between the wheels, even under the cherub, and fill thine hand with coals of fire from between the cherubims, and scatter them over the city. And he went in my sight. Now, I think, let me see, do I get the reference verse? I just got easy. Yeah, it is. It is 10. Verse 2. So let's go in on this. And we'll look at what the word says. So that was, it was all symbology there. God caused one of her servants to go in, to take a handful of coals, and to cast them out over the city in symbology of her future posterity. Now that's what that means. So when we hit coals, that's Strong's Hebrew 1513. Coals, noun is feminine. You blow on a coal, and it will come into a flame. Hot embers, all right? So if we go down here, in the notes, it'll say figurative of hope in posterity. That's what it means. So we discovered that that was all allegorical, right? Everything was an allegory there, right? All right. So let's read on here. Making sure. Okay. All right. Now we're going to hit verse 7. Verse 7 of Wisdom, chapter 3. And in the time of their visitation, they shall shine, and run to and fro like sparks among the stubble. What's stubble representative of? It's representative of wicked, the evil and the wicked. So they're burning them. They're running to and fro like sparks, right? And burning among the stubble. Now, we found every man standing around with his hands on his hips, as if he could give life, and every face turned pale. When you go look that up and understand in the commentary what it's referenced, one of the possible understandings is their face is burning in anger. They're angry. And there's nothing that sometimes, you know what they say? This is what they say. We know it. Truth burns. That's what they say. And deep down in their hearts, this is registering as truth to them. It's the only thing that's reasoning out. It's the only thing that makes sense. Man doesn't give life. Father didn't give life. Mother gave life. Mother forms the clay. Father does not do that. And so we see the anger here. And in the time of their visitation, they shall shine and run to and fro like sparks among the stubble. Now, I'm sure I could do better than that, but I'm not going to. We're going to look at this. Now, why do I get that there? Okay, let's keep reading. Now, why did I put that verse there? Okay, so I do have Micah 5, 6, and 7. So we're going to jump ahead to, because I thought I had a reference verse for verse 7, but that's not the one. Right? Sorry. I don't mean to be so clumsy about this tonight. It's funny, I have verse 7 and then I have no reference to it. Unless I intended on backtracking at some point. So, verse 8, of course, this is one we know. They shall judge the nations. Who? The ones that's running like sparks among the stubble. That's them judging the nations, right? They're burning out the wicked. They shall judge the nations and have dominion over the people, and their Lord shall reign forever, right? I had a possibility of doing a video on the dragon. Because everything I started to think about with God's wrath, and here we get a touch of it with the sparks, had to do with fire, right? I think I wrote a couple verses down here. We'll read a couple just right quick. So it's in context of God's wrath or judgment, which is what we have here. So we'll just read one verse because there are so many verses like this one to do with God's wrath or God's judgment. And Psalm 18:7, then the earth shook and trembled. The foundations also of the hills were moved and were shaken because she was angry. This is the dragon part. There went up a smoke out of her nostrils, and fire out of her mouth devoured. That word devoured took me to Isaiah 42. She says, I will dry up the pools. That sounds like with heat, fire. She also dries up the pools, and coals were kindled. What is it? Oh. And coals were kindled by it. There we go. Oh my gosh. How did I not remember that context? That was the Spirit leading right there. Because what does it say? And in the time of their visitation they shall shine and run to and fro like sparks. Among the stubble, coals were kindled by it. That's the posterity. And it's got to be Draco. Because everything's to do with fire, fire, fire. Judgment, judgment, judgment. And she is the one, the woman's seed, which was the daughters inside the nation of Israel, will crush the head of Draco. You know what that means? She takes the constellation back. And I think that's possibly the understanding you're going to get. Because that has to do with the second heaven battle. And so she crushes the head. It's she who is like God rising up for her children. And I don't know. She's the one we know that crushes the serpent's head. And we know that she got bit on the heel. And we understand it is so her because she falls to her knee. They got it as Hercules. But she did. What does it say? In Romans chapter 11, it says, what? Has Israel stumbled that she should fall? Now they got he all over the place. Again, men held the pen in their hand in that he pronoun. Well, they were in love with themselves, you see. Which is the abomination of desolation. A man inside of a man shall become desolate, shall have no children. Which leads us right back to the word obtained. And I made the mistake saying obtained there meant, children. The links to it does. I think the word one removed from it, might be twice removed from it, will lead you back to her children. What has Israel stumbled that she should fall? What has Israel not obtained? That what she seeketh for? What is she seeking for? She's seeking for the restoration of the children back to her covenant. That man rejected in the very beginning for a harlot spirit, the foundation stone, the false foundation. That's why the foundations are shaken with the dragon. That's why you get the constellation. It's coming so close. And we understand that it is identified as wrath. We looked at it in Isaiah 63. It says the globe is quaking, more or less. The volcanoes are going off. And she says, you have not seen the likes of me since the beginning when you rejected me. And it's got to do with Draco. It's got to do with the Draco constellation. Anyway, I'm going to let that go. But wow, look at that. Coals were kindled by it. And so that's in the day of their visitation. Which is why it was so important they removed this. The Apocrypha. Which was originally a part of the King James. It was in the middle of the Old and New Testament. That's curious too, isn't it? So, verse 7, and in the time of their visitation they shall shine and run to and fro like sparks among the stubble. They shall judge the nations and have dominion over the people, and their Lord shall reign forever. That's your sovereign Lord, that ain't a man. That's the Holy One of Israel, identified as daughters, or a daughter. The daughters gave birth to the nations, and each rule a nation that she actually gives birth to. And this particular one is the one of Israel, the daughter of Israel, the Holy One of Israel, that came with a law of God on her tongue that was rejected in the very beginning because Adam had too much pride to receive it. And so they end up committing great violence against her and her branch, her right hand, which are these daughters inside the nation of Israel, rejecting them for the harlot spirit that would bow and teach man's laws upon this earth, and eventually his religious law and the wicked imaginations of his heart that you find in Jeremiah 23. So they that put their trust in her shall understand the truth. We also get the dominion from verse 8 in Micah 5, verses 6 and 7. Okay, so Micah 5. Micah 5. Okay. Parallel. Yeah, that's not the word. It's in the hands of people. Okay, parallel. There we go. And it's verses 5, 6, and 7. And they shall waste the land of Assyria with the sword. Do I got the right chapter? I think I got the wrong chapter. It's Micah 4. Alright, back we go. And then maybe I did have it right. Dominion. Right there. Verse 8. And thou, O tower of the flock. What's a tower symbolic of? Your argument. Yep. Your defense. Tower. And thou, O tower of the flock, the stronghold, your argument, your defense that you run into, it takes us back to the controversy of Zion, of course, where they split the pleasant land, that's identified as the covenant of God, into two covenants, one a harlot, and rejected the righteous spirit and the law on her tongue, so they could play God. So the stronghold of the daughter of Zion, unto thee shall it come, even the first dominion. The kingdom shall come to the daughter of Jerusalem. It doesn't say daughter of Jerusalem just so it gets placed in a man's hand. That's not what it's about. And she is so the one took into the Ancient of Days, who is our mother wisdom. And she is restored back the dominion, back into her hands. Ask of me the nations, and I'll give them all to you to judge. And that's why we see them running like sparks, right? It takes us back to the coals in Ezekiel 10 as a future posterity. So it was really a promise she was making at that time before she left. Then we go to verse 9. They that put their trust in her shall understand the truth. Truth is feminine. Shall understand the truth, and such as be faithful in love shall abide with her. For grace and mercy is to her saints, and she has care for her elect. Understand, I'm trading out the he pronoun for her. But the ungodly shall be punished according to their own wicked imaginations, which have neglected the righteousness and forsaken the Lord. Yeah, and they did. They forsook the Holy One of Israel, which was the daughter and daughters inside the nation of Israel. We get them, their wicked imaginations in Jeremiah 23. We did a whole series of videos on this, and it speaks of them having imagination, their wicked imaginations and visions and all the foolishness that they began to teach to the women inside that nation, which was that they were listening to he. We get actually them changing it right over to the he pronoun in Jeremiah 23. And they begin to prophesy through Baal. We understand Baal, yes, was an idol, but it's also a name for your husband, B-A-A-L, who is also shooting at the daughters, the branches, as they pass over the wall. And Archer there is Baal, and it also means your husband. And so they were shooting at them with arrows, which is allegorical to nasty words, meaning piercing words. They pierced upon the daughters to take the spirit of their covenant out of the land. That is what it tells us when we actually determine to study the word. Now let me see here if we can find the actual verse where it says it. The he. And I have seen folly in the prophets of Samaria. They prophesied in Baal and caused my people Israel to go astray. Baal is another word for your husband. That's your bridegroom. Your idol in Daniel 2 standing, that the true foundation smashes, right? And then grows into a mountain, right? Okay, so we're still looking for that verse that says the he here. This video actually did really well for me. I got a lot of hits on it, so but I have posted it quite a bit under other videos, and I may do again. Okay, how long shall this be in the hearts of the prophet that prophesy lies? Yea, they are prophets of the deceit of their own wicked hearts, which think to cause my people to forget my name by their dreams, which they tell every man to his neighbor, to his sister, as their fathers, as their mothers, have forgotten my name for Baal. So they just tend to want to call Baal an idol, but they won't actually trace it all through. And we know Baal, there's a term, Baal-zebub in the New Testament is a term for Satan, the accuser. And Baal means your husband, and that takes us back to Adam, the accuser, who accused the first wife of the original covenant. That's what he did. And he gnashed upon her to take the spirit of her covenant out of the land so he could play God. Now that's what it states, and all through the Old Testament when you want to study and put it together through the Spirit. And they don't want to hear it. but it doesn't stop it from being the truth. This is where they begin to say it. Jeremiah 23 verse 31. Behold, I am against the prophets, saith the Lord, that use their tongues and say, He saith. Did you get that? Oh, but that's out of context. No, it's actually in context when you put it all together. They began to prophesy God as He, and they were not to do that. God says in Deuteronomy 4, you saw no image of me, you make no image of me, right? And then you know what they went out and did? They made 2 images. And God says neither male nor female. And they made a male image and they made a female image. Then we are told that the kings over time destroyed the female image and left the male one standing and told the women, you can come and worship at our altar. Yes. And that's currently where we are. That's what we're doing. And what is the first commandment of God? You are to have no idol before you. None. And that's the first thing you're guilty of doing. So how are you going to approach to God when you've got an idol between you and God? You're not. God ain't going to hear you. God ain't going to listen. So, and that's why many are going to be burnt in this judgment. The sparks among the stubble, amongst the wicked, because they're not listening. They don't want to pick themselves up from the feet of the idol, which is also indicated all through the scriptures. So, verse 10, but the ungodly shall be punished according to their own imaginations. We just read it. Read 23, Jeremiah 23. Which have neglected the righteous and forsaken the Lord. That's 136, I believe, daughter Israel's number. For whoso despises wisdom, there we go with wisdom. Wisdom says, when I called, you couldn't be bothered to listen to me. So I will mock you in the day of your calamity. When you're busy going up to your rooftops, crying out to your idol who does not hear, who does not see, and say, where are you? Why aren't you coming to get us? Then you'll realize your huge blunder, your big fall and stumble into a ditch because you were too blind to open your eyes. So for whoso despises wisdom and nurture is miserable, and their hope is in vain. Their labors unfruitful, and their works are unprofitable. So it doesn't matter how many works you have. If you are not using wisdom, if you despise nurturing the mother, I think is in view there, all your works are unprofitable. And also it speaks of the wives. Verse 12, their wives are foolish, and their children are wicked. It's taught from generation to generation. It's a sanctimonious view of God, and they reject the feminine. They reject the total feminine. God says, you are without excuse not to understand my Godhead. I manifested it in what I created. Well, you don't bear witness to he walking around on this world. You bear witness to male and female, and the female is what gives life, and she shapes the clay in her womb. And yet, Uriel will say to Ezra, how can I tell you of heavenly things when you don't even understand your earthly things? You don't even know you have a mother. And you expect me to explain to you how the heavenlies works. Well, how can I? You'll understand them when you understand your own world, number one, which you don't. So their wives are foolish and their children are wicked. So that's the harlot that exalts Baal. That's your Jezebel that you get there. Jezebel's goal with Ahab was to build him up in the land. That's what it was. And we see the first bad thing Ahab does was he brings the idol of Baal into his house, and they begin to bow down and worship it. I think Jezebel came from a household that already did worship it. But that's what the Jezebel spirit is in the land. It's the harlot bound to the idol of husband as Lord and God, your bridegroom, which is Jesus. We also know that idol come out of Egypt in the Exodus. Once you study it all back, you realize that that's where the contamination came from. The plague entered in upon the daughters, we're told that. The women from the surrounding Adamic nation, what did Balaam tell Balak, he said, go get your women and send them into the men and seduce them. And you'll be able to take the right hand of God out that way. The right hand of God was the daughters inside the nation of Israel, for anybody who actually wants to go in and study it, instead of reading commentary from thousands of years. But when you go in and you study, you will get a totally different understanding if you allow the Spirit to teach you. So the offspring is cursed. Wherefore blessed is the barren that is undefiled. Now what does it mean to be barren here? What it means to be barren is to have no children, hearkening to the spirit of your covenant. So if you have children that is hearkening to the spirit of the mother's covenant, you are not considered to be to be the barren that is undefiled. You are not considered defiled. And we'll understand that in the next chapter more clearly, because it can be confusing by what is said in that chapter. But only when you begin to realize, putting it with Isaiah chapter 54 verse 1, do we see, yet more are the children of the desolate than of she who has a husband. Well, she who has a husband, when you go in and look the word up for the wife there, is bad. So we get the abomination of desolation, really a man inside of a man. A woman is teaching a man's covenant, what he wants her to teach, and not what she was supposed to represent on this earth. So, yet more are the children of the desolate, because over time, those children begin to hearken to the spirit of the covenant. And the spirit of the covenant was that the law came off of these daughters' tongues, which was coming from directly the God of heaven. And man rejected that for the harlot that would bow to him. And he wrote his own laws. He did exactly what he wanted, which was to yoke her and to take her rights from her. He uses violence. We're told that all through the Old Testament. He used violence. He wrote violence into the skirt, it says. Now the skirt was a reference to the priests that had control over the law. And God says, you used violence. You wrote violence right into the law against my daughters and against the spirit of the original covenant, which was represented by your wife. Now that's what it says in Malachi chapter 2, when you understand what it is you are reading. So their offspring is cursed, wherefore blessed is the barren that is undefiled, which has not known the sinful bed. She shall have fruit in the visitation of souls. You see? So the visitation of souls is those who are hearkening to the spirit of your covenant. And we're going to understand that the undefiled bed comes up here in chapter 4, verse 2. Let's read it before we forget what we're talking about. So when it is present, this is men, women take example at it, and when it is gone, they desire it. She weareth the crown and triumpheth forever, having gotten the victory, striving for what? Undefiled reward. What? Has Israel stumbled that she should fall, and that she should not obtain that which she seeketh for? That's Romans 11. What is it she seeks for? She seeks for the restoration of her children back to her covenant and her law. Now that's what we've understood. Now, I'm not going to really read this next verse because it really has, I don't think it has any place. And blessed is the, I don't know what it says there, eunuch. Is this eunuch? And blessed is the virgin, which with her hands has wrought no iniquity, nor imagined wicked things against God. For unto her shall be given the special gift of faith, and an inheritance in the temple of the Lord, more acceptable to her mind. Now they'll have, God will make you, he, pillars in his temple. But the pillars are identified as feminine. When we understood the oaths, we understood Psalm 144, that your sons may be as tender plants, and that your daughters are as pillars polished after the similitude of a palace or a temple. So they are so feminine. What is your stones, your foundation stones, that causes your temple, your sanctuary, your body to stand? So they put in a false foundation, a harlot spirit, which is why we die. That's why we die, according to the Bible. Verse 35, for glorious is the fruit of good labors, and the root of wisdom shall never fall away. As for the children of adulterers, they shall not come to their perfection, and the seed of an unrighteous bed shall be rooted out. That's the harlot spirit. That's simply what we know it is. It just all is adding up. For though they live long, yet shall they be nothing regarded, and their last age shall be without honor. That idea there, verse 16, 17, kind of takes us to the fig tree in Revelation 6:13. So let's look that up. Revelations 6. Right. What does it say? It says, "And the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs, when she is shaken of a mighty wind." So we understood that word 417 Strong's Greek meant wind, but allegorically wind meant empty doctrines. So when she is shaken of a mighty wind, so of a mighty false doctrine. So this has the idea of actually of hindsight to me in many ways, because when you go back to Daniel chapter 7, we see that the one that exalted themselves to the degree of the commander of the host that was in existence, exalted themselves. That's the harlot being exalted to the righteous spirit's temple, and then it says the commander of the host got cast down, and to the point that stars were trampled upon. All right? We see that. So this is all of that in allegory, is what we're actually getting. Okay. So, in the last age shall be without honor. That's why you do so get a narrow path. There are not going to be many that comes out of it. What comes out of this is the first fruits, from what I understand. And it says in Romans 11, if the first fruits are holy, then the lump is also holy. So in order to have righteous children, you've got to have righteous daughters that know what their purpose is, and that is to teach the covenant of God, their mother, which was the law in the land. If you do not have the laws of the mother, you have sin. We have sin is shaped, iniquity is shaped by the law, is what we're told. And that's what we have in the land. So verse 18, or if they die quickly, they have no hope, neither comfort in the day of trial. For horrible is the end of the unrighteous generation. So that's the last 3.5 years, the Great Tribulation. And it's amazing how much of it lines up with how they poisoned the doctrine, which is allegorical to your waters, your wormwood. We know the water springs from the wife of the original covenant. We're told that in Song of Songs 4:12-15, and that she flowed from Lebanon like a living water. She represents the key of David. We're also told it in Proverbs 5. In so much of the reading that you read, when you get water involved, you'll get your doctrine and your law brought into it. So God will send, you want to wash in blood, you want to drink blood, so you get the symbology of wine on the table, your admixture of doctrine, which was also your Red Sea that had to be parted into the two covenants. So the word of God is sharper than this double-edged sword that is actually held in the hand of the harlot, we're told in Proverbs 5. So it's an admixture of doctrine, really, that she's holding. But the true word of God is able to part them, that Red Sea. And the Red Sea is allegorical to the Exodus, yes, but it's allegorical to the birthing and the deliverance of the children, which was by the presence of God, which was identified as the camp of Mahanaim that was shown following the Shulimite. So her story is all weaved throughout like the silver thread, like the water, if you want to follow it, which is akin to the little book that is sealed up, held in the angel's hand in Revelation 10. Actually, the little book is inside that book that the angel's holding. And the seven thunders utters it, and John is told to seal it up and not to speak on it. So we see three men actually knowing what the truth was and being told that they could not speak on it. And that is why when John had to eat down this word, God says you must still go and teach this, and it was bitter in his stomach. It was wormwood in his stomach, because he knew he had to go out and teach something that he knew to be wrong, because he'd borne witness to the truth, and that's why it was bitter in his stomach, is what I understand. We also see Paul having been took to the third heaven and shown something that he was not allowed to speak on. We also see Daniel's countenance fell. Once he understood the truth, he was sick for many days, but he was not allowed again to speak on it. God says, Daniel, when you die, you will go and you will stand in the lot apportioned to you. But you will not speak on this truth. It's not for you. It was for the seven thunders, which is akin to seven daughters. That's what we see. Now, chapter 4, better it is to have no children, and to have virtue. For the memorial thereof is immortal, because it is known with God, and with women. It's known with women. I don't know how you can't understand that the harlot spirit is in reference to idol worship. And in the beginning, that did have the idea of male and female turning to idols, and both of those idols were a male and a female idol. Well, over time, the harlot spirit took hold as a feminine expression. Harlot, you harlot. Because all that began to stand in the land was this male idol that the men and the kings of these kingdoms began to build upon, realizing the power that it put into their hands. And the riches. Because under the law, you were not entitled to any goods. They took those from you. So the king saw that it was going to make them rich, and that they were going to be able to do to the women precisely whatever they wanted to. And if you can't open your eyes and see that historically, you can't see it now happening around the globe, you can't open your ears to reasoning, then you will be one of these, and their last days shall be without honor. But you do have the choice. And that's why we also get, in the time of their visitation, I tend to think that has to do with the dragon and the spirit coming upon these women. They shall shine and run to and fro like sparks among the stubble. And then we have the wrath of God. There went up smoke out of, it's not his nostril, her nostrils, and fire out of her mouth, devoured. That takes us to Isaiah 42. She says, long time have I held my peace. Now will I go forth as a travailing woman. I will destroy and I will devour at once. I will lead you in pathways that you have not known. So her mouth devoured, and coals were kindled by it. So again, we get the idea of a future posterity there. I've been looking at the Draco constellation, and it's part of this whole thing. So when it is present, women take example at it, and when it is gone, they desire it. She weareth a crown and triumph forever, having gotten the victory, striving for undefiled reward. Undefiled reward is simply children that will hearken to the spirit of the covenant, which is the first of all, the first 10 commandments that was ever gave by this Lord, pictured in Deuteronomy 4. And that Lord says, you will make no image, neither male nor female. And they rushed straight out and made a male and female idol, tore the female one down, and couldn't follow the 10 commandments that she had gave there. Verse 3, but the multiplying brood of the ungodly shall not thrive, nor take deep root from bastard slips, nor lay any fast foundation. Well, the foundation is the righteous spirit, the righteous daughter, Israel. So where do we find these bastard slips? Where do we find them? We find them right here. We find them in Jeremiah 5:10. This is where we find them. God says, go up upon her walls and destroy, but make not a full end. Take away her battlements, for they are not the Lord. That word is Strong's Hebrew 5189. Let's look it up. Actually, let's pull up Jeremiah 5. And God says, you put in strange slips. And when you look, what is it? The word is wormwood, I believe. You put in strange slips. You put in wormwood. You put in poison, is what God says. And the poison is akin to a harlot spirit, hearkening to a religious lie and law in the land. Jeremiah 5, sorry. Okay, slow here. Jeremiah 5, parallel. Oh, my hands is off. Go back. Okay, there we go. I got 6 there. Let's go back. Okay. So verse 10. And I did this because I wanted to see the various renderings. Go through her vineyards and ravage them, but do not destroy them completely. Strip off her branches, for these people do not belong to the Lord. Why wouldn't they belong to the Lord? I mean, the men were there after all. Because we're told that Israel was the woman's seed. That means you're defined as an Israelite through the women. That's what that means. And we backed that up, validated that, because the men that had took wives from the surrounding Adamic nations were not written down in the book as Israelites, and nor was their children. It was only when you took wives from the Israelite, or a wife, not wives, let's not get that wrong, 1 and 1. That was the creation account, not one man and 800 wives and 200 concubines. No, no, no. That was all man himself with his pen, making it okay. It was never okay in God's eyes. You can tell all the lies you want. So these slips were not hers. Why? Because the men in Israel took wives, harlot wives, from the surrounding Adamic nations. And we know that there was a lot going on at this time, a lot of battling going on, to the point that they completely rejected the daughters of Israel, where we get them writing laws. In Numbers 5, the law of bitter waters. We even get a priest's daughter, if a priest's daughter prostitutes herself, because they really get off on prostitution, women do. They willingly go into these fields. I mean, have you watched an account of what they do to these women? And they willingly want to play the prostitute in these, if she goes off and plays the prostitute, it says, burn her. Burn her alive, because she has defiled her father. Really? Really? No mention of mother or daughter being defiled. No mention of the men who defiled her being burned. It was just all about this girl being defiled and causing defilement to her father, who was a priest, so burn her. Yeah. You think that come from God? Do you see what they have to do to these young girls to force them to submit to this type of life? They usually beat them, they drug them, or they gang rape them multiple times to force them into these prostitution houses. Now you tell me, yeah, right. You can tell whose pen wrote it. It was a male's pen that wrote it. That's what wrote it. And that's why God says, these slips are not mine. They don't belong to me. Go up through her vine rows and destroy, but make not a full end. Strip away her branches, for they are not mine. Go ye up upon her walls and destroy, but make not a full end. Take away her battlements, for they are not the Lord's. So you get, I will make your battlements of ruby. In Isaiah 28 with, I will try and test before I lay a new foundation stone. And that is that you are not playing man's harlot, bowing to the idol of man as your Lord and God. That's what that means. They used great violence and took away your rights and rejected the spirit of the original covenant to get us to this point. So these slips, yes, while they're going to be took away, so won't he. He's going to pay. We get all those verses as well for what he caused in the land, what he did. Go ye upon her walls. Go up among her vineyard terraces and destroy them, but do not finish them off. Prune away her shoots, for they do not belong to the Lord. And that's why we get the serpents coming in, poisoning the men. There again, we get the serpent, right? The dragon, wrapped around a branch. And we know that serpent was allegorical to wise women who were the rulers inside the nation of Israel. And once these men were bitten by these women that Balaam told Balak to go get and send in and teach them the law of what they had been taught and abused by, we get some of the meaning of their names to mean that they were abused. They were beat into submission. And so God says if these men choose to turn away from what was poisoning them and turn back to this branch, to these wise women who are the scepter, who are the rulers inside the nation of Israel, then they will live. So that, I mean, that's what you're getting. That's your understanding. So I'm going to move on here. Okay. But the multiplying brood of the ungodly shall not thrive, nor take deep rooting from bastard slips, nor lay any fast foundations. But we know that they did, the harlot spirit. For though they flourish in branches for a time, yeah, they still are, yet standing not last, they shall be taken with the wind, and through the force of wind they shall be rooted out. Well, we get that wall, and again we get a wall in Draco. Let me pull this up, in the Draco constellation, and it's described as a wall. This is curious, right? We see the aurora borealis, right? And Draco's on the other side of that, from what I'm understanding. This is what it says. It says the constellation, no, it's not there, down here. Okay, the Hercules Corona Borealis Great Wall, possibly the largest known structure in the universe, covers a part of the southern region of Draco, of the dragon. So we get the wall in Ezekiel 13. God says, I will destroy your wall. Because Adam, we are told in Job 31, verse 33, that he walled up his transgressions. And walled up has the idea is he walled it in with whitewash. Whitewash has the idea of a lie. And then when you understand what the harlot is saying in Isaiah 47, she says, this is Babylon. She says, no one sees me. I will never be widowless. I will never be childless. What is she saying? She's saying she's hid in the heart of man. But what does God say about this wall? This whitewashed wall of lies that they've daubed in. God says, because they have seduced my daughters, my people, saying peace, peace. We get this same understanding in Jeremiah 9, and it's repeated in Jeremiah 8, 5, 4, some of them chapters in through there. Because they have seduced my people, saying peace, peace, and there was no peace. And one built up a wall, and lo, others daubed it with untempered mortar. That's whitewash. That's a lie. Say unto them which daub it with untempered mortar, that it shall fall. There shall be an overflowing shower. It says a flooding rain will come, and you, O hailstone, will fall, and a violent wind will break out. There shall be an overflowing shower, and ye, O great hailstones, shall fall, and a stormy wind shall rend it. So that takes us all back to the wrath of God and the dragon breaking the wall down, which takes us, and let's read it, because it's just not complete if we don't. If we go to Isaiah 63, we get the understanding of the idea of a large planetary body, is what it sounds like to me, as it comes nearer and nearer to Earth. And that's found in Isaiah. Let me get there. Come on. I'm still in Ezekiel. Come on. So, Isaiah. Right there. 63, this is what it says. No, it's 64. I'm in the wrong chapter. So it's Isaiah 64. Oh, that thou wouldest rend the heavens, that thou wouldest come down, and that the mountains might flow down at thy presence. That's in the day of our visitation. When the Spirit comes back upon us, we become the sparks here that'll burn up the stubble. It's all there. That the mountains might flow down at the presence. What mountains? Volcanoes. As when the melting fire burneth, the fire causes the waters to boil, to make thy name known to thine adversaries, that the nations may tremble at your presence. When thou didst tremble, when thou didst terrible things, which we looked not for, thou camest down, and the mountains flowed down at thy presence. For since the beginning of the world, you have not heard, nor perceived by the ear, neither have I seen, O God, beside thee, what God has prepared for them that waiteth for God. You see? It lines right up. You know, when a large planetary body approaches to us, the gravity pull is of great disruption to Earth, right? It begins to cause a lot of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. And she says, since the beginning, you have not seen the likes of this. So I do so think it's Draco. We are connected to the wrath as fire, and in the day of their visitation. So I think they also crushed the head of the serpent when she rises up into the second heaven. And they take back the Draco constellation. It was always theirs to begin with, is what it looks like. That's just a rough understanding at this point. Okay. Now, so we saw the stormy wind here. God promised that she was going to do this. She was going to tear that wall down. So we read that there's a wall here in the Draco constellation. So the Hercules Corona Borealis Great Wall, possibly the largest known structure in the universe, covers a part of the southern region of Draco. So I still have yet to understand how the Draco eclipses us. We're said to be near the tail end, is what I kind of am starting to understand, though we move through all, but they're not telling us the whole picture. There's something wrong here. There's something wrong in our understanding. Okay. So, through the force of wind they shall be rooted out. Verse 5. Chapter 4, verse 5 of Wisdom. The imperfect branches shall be broken off. Their fruit is unprofitable. It's not ripe to eat. Yea, it is meat for nothing. Now let me see. Where's my notes here? What do we have for notes? Okay. Okay, so we ain't hit. Okay, so we get, in reference to the stubble, which was actually over here, right? Yeah, so, okay, so I didn't, so verse 7 of Wisdom 3, okay, I missed this one, Exodus 15:7. And in the greatness of your excellency you overthrew those who rose up against you. You sent forth your wrath. It consumed them like stubble. So again, we get them moving to and fro in the day of their visitation. Right? They take the wall down. Well, who? Well, that sounds like the dragon. The wrath of God. It has the fire, the fire, the fire. So, still looking into it. For the children begotten of unlawful beds, you think this covenant is lawful. This was not a lawful covenant. We're told that in Isaiah 29 that this covenant will be disannulled. In the covenant they said, for we are at agreement with Sheol. And the idea is with the womb of Sheol. The daughters who willingly teach the children man-made law and lies. Religious lie and laws. So when the overflowing scourge comes in, what's that overflowing scourge? Well, again, it takes us back to Draco. It does. And in the day of our visitation, what visitation? The Spirit coming upon us. They will run to and fro like sparks among the stubble, among the wicked. It consumes them like stubble. So they say, with Sheol are we at agreement? And when the overflowing scourge comes in, it will bypass us. It will not touch us. No, it's going to touch you. It's going to burn you. You're stubble. That's what it says. And they're the sparks that's going to burn you. How? I don't know completely, but it's all there. But though the righteous be prevented with death, yet shall she be in rest. Yeah, so there's more going on. There's an afterthought lingering there, isn't there? Verse 8, for honorable age is not that which standeth in length of time, nor that is measured by number of years. But wisdom is the gray hair unto women, and an unspotted life is old age. So what does that mean? Well, it means hearkening to the truth of God. And that doesn't mean listening to men on the pulpit teach men. Jesus did not expound the scripture. All Jesus said was everything was him. It meant him. It meant me. It meant me. Jacob's ladder was me, me, me. That's all he ever said. He didn't actually go in and tell you and explain anything out. He just said it's all about him. And that was men's pens writing it so. And we come to realize that the New Testament was representing the feet of the idol of Daniel 2. That allows this image of a man as your Lord and God to continue to stand and put you against God. Not with God, you're against God. But though the righteous be prevented with death, yet shall they be in rest. For honorable age is not that which is standing in length of time, nor that is measured by number of years, but wisdom is the gray hair unto women, in an unspotted life is old age. She pleased God, and was beloved of her, so that living among sinners, she was translated. So, I had hit another verse. I didn't get it written down. The idea was that she removed her, lest she become contaminated again by the lies. So she takes this group out early. Do they come back as the overflowing scourge? Which is also takes us back to, but though the righteous be prevented with death, yet shall she be in rest. They be in rest, yeah? Because they are the promised judges of God, judgment of God, wrath of God. We get the dragon reborn that'll either break or save the world. It's both. It's judgment. That's what it is. It's judgment is what it's representing. Verse 11, yea, speedily was she taken away, lest that wickedness should later alter her understanding, or deceit beguile her soul. So, once you understand, there's this idea that maybe they target you harder, they come after you harder. And so because of that reason, she takes you out early. She removes you. So that once you do have the truth, that you keep that truth, that you don't lose it. For the bewitching of naughtiness does obscure things that are honest, and the wandering of concupiscence does undermine the simple mind. Concupiscence. That means a strong sexual desire, a lust. And what does it say? You turned the glory of the Lord, or the good things of the Lord, into lasciviousness. So that means that you take the good and you make it bad. Well, how did they do that? Well, they began with the law system, didn't they? That's how they made woman their harlot, by denying the law come from their tongue, and took control of it and made her subject to them. So verse 13, she being made perfect in a short time fulfilled a long time. So that's the spirit that comes. Though lifetime, apparently we are shaped for this purpose, but it's to fulfill a long time. The time span that we're told is 7,000 years. So for her soul pleased the Lord I believe is 136. That's daughter Israel's number. Therefore hasted she to take her away from among the wicked. This the people saw and understood it not, and they don't. This is the only way you will understand. It's if you choose to open your eyes and listen with your ears, stand up from the feet of the idol and search for the deeper truth, and understand what God's love looks like in here. Otherwise you're not going to understand it. So this the people saw and understood it not, neither laid they up this in their minds, that her grace and mercy is with her saints, and that she hath respect unto her chosen. Thus the righteous that is dead shall condemn the ungodly which are living. So again, we get that idea, that kind of nod there, right? That there's something more going on. But though the righteous be prevented with death, yet shall she be in rest. Thus the righteous that is dead shall condemn the ungodly which are living. And youth that is soon perfected, the many years and old age of the unrighteous, that's fallen man physically, right? Soon perfected the many years and old age of the unrighteous. Many years and old age of the unrighteous. I've got that divided, so I don't remember why I did it. Okay, so verse 17. Let's see if I've got any other notes, which I probably don't. So we're just about done. Ooh. Okay. Okay, I discussed all that. Okay. So we'll flip the page and see if we got anything over here. Okay, so I had for 14, I had Revelations 3:12, 13. And why did I have that? Let me see, verse 14. For her soul pleased the Lord, therefore hasted she to take her away from among the wicked. So Revelations 3. Revelations 3. Okay. 12. I got 12. And 13. To those that overcometh, I will make a pillar. There we go. So, yeah, in the temple of my God. And she shall go no more out, and I will write upon her the name of my God, and the name of the city of my God, which is New Jerusalem, which cometh down out of heaven from my God, and I will write upon her my new name. She that hath an ear, let her hear what the Spirit saith unto Israel. Not the churches. It's Israel. She's speaking to Israel. The seven, right? And we said it's why it speaks of 7 daughters as the sevenfold Spirit. These daughters appear to come off the 7 continents. That's what it looks like. All right. And so we also got that verse, Psalm 144, that your daughters, Psalm 144, verse 12, that your daughters may be as pillars polished after the similitude of a palace. Now, I said that for verse 14. Why did I? Okay, no, I've got the wrong chapters. Chapter 3, I said that for. So what was chapter 3, verse 14? And blessed is, the virgin which with her hands. Yeah, okay, so we already discussed that. Sorry about that. I thought it was chapter 4. Okay, so we blundered there. That her grace and mercy is with her saints, and that she has respect unto her chosen. Thus the righteous that is dead shall condemn the ungodly which are living, and youth that is soon perfected the many years, and old age of unrighteous. For they shall see the end of the wise, and shall not understand what God in her counsel has decreed of her. They don't understand. They can't be bothered with it. Because this doctrine is like wormwood. It's wormwood in their stomachs, really poison them. But it tickles their ears. It's like honey on their tongue. Man is God. Women must listen to man. Man is woman's head. And even the women playing the harlot now have gotten caught up in that, to the point that they share that same sort of pride when you tell them they're wrong to be doing what they're doing, and they just can't stand to hear it. But 17, for they shall see the end of the wise, and shall not understand what God in her counsel has decreed of them or her, and to what end the Lord has set, that the Lord has set her in safety. I think after they're caught up, they take on Draco, and they crush the serpent's head, who struck the woman's heel. What? Has Israel stumbled that she should fall? No. Has Israel not obtained that which she seeketh for? Her children restored back to her covenant. So verse 18, they shall see her and despise her. Oh, they do. They despise her. They despise me. I know that for speaking this. I'm supposed to bow to a man as Lord and God. I'm not supposed to think with my... I'm supposed to listen to everybody that's got a big education, but God says, I will use the weak things of this world to confound the mighty. But God shall laugh them to scorn. Where do we get God laughing them to scorn? Wisdom says, I will laugh at you in the day of your calamity, because when I called wisdom, you couldn't be bothered to listen. So she says to her firstborn in Psalm 2, she says, I give you the decree, right? This day have I birthed you. Yeah, it's not Father doing it. And she says, ask of me the nations, and I'll give them all to you. And she said, you will rule them with a rod. Well, that rod gets caught up, I think, to Draco after she crushes the serpent's head. Because when she deals in wrath, you'll get the wrath as fire. You will. So there's something there. There is. So they shall see her and despise her. But God, wisdom, the ancient of days, our mother, shall laugh them to scorn, and they shall hereafter be a vile carcass, and a reproach among the dead forevermore. So the judgment, you have a choice. Yeah. You have a choice. What do they say? Turn or burn? Well, there's going to be no body provided. And according to what I understand is that's the worst thing for a spirit, not to have a form to dwell in. God says, oh, you can ignore me, but you forget I'm the one that shapes the clay. I determine who gets a new body. Not you. And we did a video on that. So, for she shall rend them and cast them down headlong, that they shall be speechless, and she shall shake them from the foundation. What's that? The harlot spirit that refuses to get up from the idol. And they shall be utterly laid waste, and be in sorrow, and be in sorrow, and their memorial shall perish. That's the idol in Daniel 2. Bridegroom as Lord and God. You will perish and you will be utterly laid waste. You're not allowed into the heavens when you can't transform and be renewed. Be renewed and transformed by the renewing of your mind. You can't change the way you're thinking because you've been so programmed for many hundreds, thousands of years, for thousands of years by this religious lie, through violence, through war, degradation. It's been pounded into your head. Only when you have the heart to know the heart of God will you understand what a lie that is. So, last verse, verse 20 of Wisdom chapter 4. And when they cast up the accounts of their sins, they shall come with fear, and their own iniquities shall convince them to their face. You get it? I do. In part, for sure. You speak of mother in the context of the Almighty God that gave life. And you know what they do? They get really upset about it. To the point that I think their own iniquities will convince them to their face. And again, we'll go back to Uriel saying to Ezra, if you don't even know about your earthly truths, I mean, how am I going to teach you of the heavenly and have you understand it? Okay. So in verse 19, wow, I had a whole bunch over here. Here they are. Way over. Yeah, I don't know about me. There they are. Jeremiah 5, Ezekiel 13. So I pretty much got them all. Isaiah 28. Verse 9. I had blameless, no idols. Who shall ascend into my holy hill? Yeah. So let's look at 9. We'll just do a quick recap here to see what we did miss. 9. But wisdom is the gray hair unto women in an unspotted life. Okay. So I have, is it? See, this is saying 4. Blameless, no idols, who shall ascend into my holy hill. She with clean hands and a pure heart, who does not lift her hands or voice up to an idol, right? Unto vanities. The vanities there is male idols. So I wonder if the holy hill isn't found in Draco after she crushes his head and takes back her throne, what he stole. What didn't belong to her was her throne. We get her in Isaiah 52, God saying to her, pick thyself up out of the dust of the earth. She got cast down into the dust of the earth. We get a wall, a partition in a sense, between earth and the Draco. And yet she's the one that rises up for her children. And it says no place is found for Draco. But when you go in, the idea is there's no sheath or place found for his sword. And sword is your word. So what it's saying is there's no more, his law is no more found anywhere. She takes it out. So I wonder if Draco, when she got cast down to the earth, the stars, and some of the stars stamped upon, was the daughters of Israel being cast down from their throne, their rightful throne. And you kind of get all of that allegory in Isaiah 52. Pick thyself up out of the dust, O dear daughter, and take thy throne back. And then she says to Babylon, the harlot, there is no throne for you. Come down. There never was a throne for you. So is Draco part of her throne? Yeah, it seems like. So I had defined bewitching, and I didn't write it down. We're going to bypass it. So that is reserved for the end. She was made perfect in a short time, lest she be corrupted over a long period of time. She that is reserved for the end. That is who it is. We've discovered that. We've talked about that too. She's the one that's reserved. So, yeah. she being made perfect in a short time, fulfilled a long time. So yeah, that takes us to Ezra, right, where the one comes up out of the water, which was reserved for the end times. Verse 14, why? Because didn't want her corrupted. Takes us back to verse 13. Okay. They hated and shot at her. The harlot spirit, the false foundation. This is verse 19. For she shall rend them and cast them down headlong, that they shall be speechless, and she shall shake them from the foundation, and they shall be utterly laid waste and be in sorrow, and their memorial shall perish. So that's the harlot spirit, the false foundation, shaken, and those that cannot escape the snare that they laid for us, the original daughters of Israel, to fall into. That's in verse 19. Daniel 2 takes us, verse 19 also takes us to Daniel 2. The stone that gets laid is the stone that smashes the toes on the idol of a man as God, which is the daughters of Israel. Verse 20. Open your eyes and ears. Look at what the law of fallen man has done, before it's too late. That's our study. There we go. Let's see how long we're at. 1:30. I kind of thought it might be longer than that. I know this has been a slow move, especially since I've been into so many other studies of late. And I might throw out some odd videos before I get into another study of wisdom. We'll just kind of, work our way through the book of wisdom whenever we get the chance. So we'll be starting in chapter 5 of wisdom. Let's see, how long is that chapter? It's fairly long, but again, we may take 5 and 6 in our next wisdom study. Again, in the process, I might throw up a couple other odd videos not to do with wisdom, other things that I've been looking at and studying if I get the time. Thank you all for watching my videos. Any who's coming along on this journey, who's really understanding it and picking it up. There's so many elements to it. It's amazing. I was really quite fascinated by the Draco when I really got into that, and I'm still into it. I studied a lot of that today, and I've just been in it all week after I did my wisdom. So this is the first day I've really gotten back looking at wisdom again, and I need to get back into it again. So anyway, again, thanks for watching. Thanks for coming along on this journey. I pray the Lord blesses you with an abundance of the truth, of the waters, of the straight path. Pray you share it. I pray the Lord just simply bless you in your everyday life. I hope you had a really lovely day today. We had a lovely day of rain. We've had quite a few of them. We really like them. I really like the rain. I love the rain. Anyway, I thank you for watching, and I hope you all continue to have a blessed day, week, month, years, whatever. So, thanks for watching.